of my room, I read the light. Words on pages like stars in the night.
Woo! Welcome back to another episode of Fight Depression with Knowledge. My name's Dylan, and I got a lot to say here in a short amount of time, so we're just gonna go ahead and get to it. First off, I want to apologize. It's been a little bit since I've made a new episode. Kind of been going through some stuff, you know, um, related to my health, and just kind of been dipping on back into the research side of things, and been wanting to get back on here for quite some time. Just been kind of lacking the motivation, but I heard something this morning on a podcast I was listening to, and it kind of told me to just get on out here and quit wasting time, so yeah, and with that, I kind of want to shout out, um, is this really cool place that I recently have found through listening to these guys on a different podcast, the Nephilim Death Squad, which I love their show. Great information, and it's kind of a recent podcast that I've found over the past couple weeks. So I've been kind of just going in and listening to a bunch of different stuff, and with that, I found that, for one, that they're in my area, which is pretty cool. So they name dropped a couple places that I'm familiar with, and with that, they've been partnering with this coffee shop, and the owner of this coffee shop, his name's Matt. Absolutely amazing information. He's come on the show a couple times with them, and he's become a really big part of it. And long story short, this coffee shop was only like about 10 minutes or so from my house. Recently moved to this Summerfield area, and it's a Christian coffee shop. And I know that sounds alarming to most people who might hear it, but I think it's absolutely amazing. And wouldn't even know it's a Christian coffee shop, but they have a kind of library in the back, and amazing coffee. I stopped by and was able to support them last week, and checked it out. And I went in there, and I read the Bible for a couple hours, and it's kind of funny how things work out, because I kind of didn't go there to, for any reason, like to meet anybody or anything. But, after reading for a couple hours, I had the urge to say something to, the barista, because I heard, the owner speak, and, a lot of his words resonated really well with me. And, it was a really cool place to be, and really nice atmosphere. And, the guy is a great guy, and got a lot of wisdom. And yeah, so if anybody hears this, and they're local here in Florida to the Summerfield area, check out the Standard Coffee Shop, and they got some great stuff. And there's still tons of stuff that I wanted to try on their menu. I love coffee, so that my one of my new two favorite things right now is studying my newfound faith, and in God, and Jesus Christ, and coffee. I freaking love coffee. So what better to support is a coffee shop that's doing great things here in the community. And how crazy is it that it was so close? And I had, like I said, just heard about it on a podcast, so had no clue. And I've passed it a couple times, but there's a lot of coffee shops in the area, and right now money's a little tight, so I tend to make it at home if I can. But I love supporting local businesses, so I will absolutely be checking out the Standard Coffee Shop in the Villages. And there's a lot of fun stuff that they're doing now. So I'm going to be keeping up and keeping track with them. The guys from Nephilim Death Squad have great videos, and they also hosting, you know, this event called Bohemian Grove, which I think is super cool. It's cool that there's, you know, um, stuff like that so close to the community here where I'm at, because you kind of feel like a lot of us are kind of out on our own limbs here, kind of isolated from our own family, kind of looked at as, what do they say, schizos, yeah. So, you know, it's cool to have met some guys with, some like-minded stuff. And, that guy, Matt, I heard something today, this morning, they're doing, a segment, and I kind of plan to talk about them a little bit because they're doing some good work, and it has to be recognized. But they're doing a segment with Matt on there, the owner of that coffee shop, called Straight Bible. And this morning he was talking about Moses and the burning bush, and he had some great words. And every time I hear him speak on something, it resonates well with me. So that's why I'm here today, getting back in here, getting another episode in. Because I think it had something to the effect of like, you know I've been on this mission for a while, and sometimes we get so caught up of being the superstar, or getting this or that, or likes, or popularity, or this or that. But what he said is, God's not really looking for superstars. He just kind of wants you to get out there and do your thing. And, that's what he wanted me to do. And, I've been kind of procrastinating it for a long time here. So it's time to get back out. But with that, I wanted to discuss too an idea that I kind of got from their show, something that they kind of do, but I wanted to put my own version on it and tell my story about it. So, if you believe, let's say, in the evil side of things, ghosts, demonic presence, um, stuff like that, then it really makes you beg the question that you have to kind of believe in the good, and, they talk about that a little bit on their show. And I thought I wanted to discuss it a little bit because, I had an experience when I was young in my 20s. And, this is kind of before any of my faith and, religion and stuff came about. And, the way I look at it now is definitely different, and for sure solidifies, the fact that there is evil entities, evil spirits attached to people, however you want to slice it, but there is evil out there waiting to lurk on to people. And they usually do it when we don't even realize. Sorry, excuse me. So with that, I'm going to tell a story, something that happened to me when, like I said, I was in my party years in my 20s. And it was kind of a really crazy experience, and I kind of ignored it back then, but now I look at it as they were trying to, something was trying to kind of harass me at that time to keep me, there's something that they talk about in the spirit realm. How do I word it here? That if a spirit thinks that that person is going to do good or can set out to do good, then it's going to try to stop you from completing that mission, whether it be through this, through drugs, through whatever. It's going to try to harm you so that you can't do good in this world. You can't, whether it's bring a message, bring peace, whatever the case is. Not saying that's what happened to me, but now I do think about it in that sort of way. So I forgot my episode's got to be kind of short here. So I'm actually gonna get ready to wrap this one, and on the very next episode, I'll touch back with this story. It's going to be the evil kind of the most supernatural thing that I kind of have dealt with in my life. And I remember it being very, very, freaky at the time. But like I said, y'all, if you believe kind of in that evil, then, I challenge you to, also think about the good, research the good, because, you know, you can't have one without the other. And, right now there is so much evil going on. And we got to be the good out here. It really is a spiritual warfare going on with everyone right now. And every single day you see evil winning. You see, in little steps, people are doing crazy things. They're doing it to themselves, they're doing it to others. But every single day, you see something new, crazy. Storms, Mount Dora just had one of the crazy, they called it 1,000-year storm. Tavares and Mount Dora was flooded, roads torn apart. And for months now, I've been wondering when it was going to be close to home, because I've been seeing it, here and there in Texas and other places. And, I've been wondering when it was going to get close to home. And, here it is, 40 minutes to an hour away. Roads are getting washed by rain. And, things are crazy right now, y'all. And I'm not out here trying to scare anybody. I just want to bring awareness to some very, very real, possibilities. And, the more people who are asleep at the wheel, you know, it's just not going to go well. We need, I had a neighbor yesterday text my wife and ask for some super glue or hot gun glue or whatever. And I thought that was such a great moment because, they had just moved in a couple months back. We don't really know, we see them here and there with the dogs out and stuff like that. But, today's day and age, 2025, they're leading, they're kind of programming us to hate our neighbors. The neighbors hate us, we hate them. One has this flag up, we don't agree with it, so let's hate them. They really don't want you dependent on your community. And that's the total opposite of what should be happening right now. More than ever, we should be, saying hi to the neighbors. And because when stuff hits the fan here in the very near future, you know, that's the only people we're gonna have is our immediate, neighbors. And, you know, it's just very scary times. And when we're all being programmed to do certain things and think a certain way, it just doesn't help. So, try to spread peace, spread love. But yeah, it's hard out here, but I'm gonna be coming back with some more content. I've been really slacking lately, but have to get out here. I got to get out here and join this fight. I had a couple episodes, kind of tapered off, got on my own thing again. And, I really got to get back to this because fight depression with knowledge is a very real thing. It goes way bigger than me. It goes, people are waking up due to knowledge every day. And, it's just got to be part of this fight because more and more people need to continue to wake up. And, I really do think that it can help people and, um, help them live a better life and more positive, experience while we're here. And, you know, eat better. And yeah, I don't know. I think fight depression with knowledge is very important. But we're gonna wrap this up, and on the next episode, we're definitely gonna talk that supernatural experience. Takes place upstate New York during my college years. Pretty intense story. But yeah, y'all, you guys stay blessed and stay tuned. We're gonna see you on the flip side.